Pastor Bob Bale here from the Port First United Methodist Church with a daily devotion about being special because we're created by God. There's a song that I learned as a little boy titled Crayon Box. And it helps us understand the different colors of the crayon box can help us also learn about the life of Jesus Christ. So I want to sing just a little bit of it to get us started. It goes, when I was just a little child, no higher than your knee, my mother bought a box of crayons just for me. I picked them up and opened them up, and I looked down inside, and the colors there reminded me of Jesus when he died. Here's where the colors come in. For red is the color of the blood that he shed, brown is for the crown that they laid on his head, blue is for royalty with him it dwells, yellow's for the Christian who's afraid to tell. So this little song, even though it's a kid's song, it has great meaning for us as adults and learning more about Jesus Christ. Today, there's a book that I want to bring to your attention. It's by Max Lucado. It's titled You Are Mine. It's a children's story about this character named Punchinello. Now, Punchinello is this little boy here, and he thinks the way to become special is by buying material possessions like boxes and balls. And whoever collects the most boxes and balls of the Whimsics is the most important. You see, in this little village that he lives in called Whimsicville are these puppets, these people made of wood named Whimsics, and they're all collecting boxes and balls, and whoever collects the most, I guess, must be the most important. And then one day, Punchinello stumbled into the woodsman's shop. And Punchinello realized that the boxes and balls really didn't matter to get true happiness. It wasn't found in material possessions. And the central issue of the story is about whether the opinions of others really matter in our lives, or is it more important of God's opinions? Punchinello judges his own self-worth based upon the opinions and judgments of others. Oh, poor Punchinello. Seems like he gets punched around a lot to me. He needs to be reminded that his creator, Eli, the master craftsman and builder, created him. Our church is so blessed to have a special storyteller named Miss Pam Hayes. And she's an elementary school teacher, and she is going to read to you this story titled You Are Mine. Let's enjoy her gift story, her storytelling ability. Thank you, Pam.
The next book is called You Are Mine, and as you know, we have fallen in love with the Punchinello character. But he has a different message in this book. Let's see what it is. You Are Mine by Max Lucado. Punchinello lived in Wemmickville. Just like all other Wemmicks, he was made of wood. Just like all other Wemmicks, he was carved by Eli, the Wemmick maker. And just like the other Wemmicks, he sometimes did silly things. Like the time he began collecting boxes and balls. Things started getting a little crazy when Wemmick named Tuck bought a new box. Others had boxes, but Tuck's was a new box. Tuck loved his new box. He thought it was the best box in the village. It was brightly colored, and he was proud of it. Too proud, perhaps. He strutted up and down the street, showing off his box. Have you seen my new box? He would ask the Wemmicks as he passed the street. Would you like to touch my new box? Tuck marched right up to Punchinello. Don't you wish you had a new box? He teased. Punchinello thought, thought it was Tuck's box was beautiful, and he began to wish for a box of his own. Tuck kept showing off his box, thinking he was better than the other Wemmicks just because he had a new box. Now Nip, another Wemmick, disagreed. "My box is as good as Tuck's," he said, as he showed off his box to the Wemmicks on the other side of the street. Nip's box was not new, but it was a bit bigger and a bit brighter and a bit more than Tuck could take. Tuck got very quiet and gave Nip a mad look. And then he had an idea. He stepped into that store and he bought a ball. Now, he had more things than Nip. He had a box and he had a ball. Nip frowned at Tuck's ball. Nip could do better than that. He bought 2 balls. With a smile on his face, 2 balls, and a box in his hands, he marched right over to Tuck and smirked. "Now I have more than you." Before he knew it, Tuck was in the store buying yet another box. Then Nip ran in to buy another ball. Then Tuck bought a ball, then Nip bought a box. Ball, box, ball, box, Tuck, Nip, Nip, Tuck. On and on and on it went. Someone could have stopped the whole mess right there. In fact, that's what the mayor tried to do. "You two are being silly," he said to Nip and Tuck. "Why, who cares who has the most toys?" "You're just jealous," they replied, "because you don't have any." "Jealous of you. Ha!" But within a few moments, the mayor was in the store buying an armful of boxes and another armful of balls. Other Wemmicks began to join in. The butcher, the baker, the cabinet maker, the doctor from up the street, and the dentist from down the street. And before long, every Wemmick wanted to be the one with the most balls and boxes. Some boxes were big, some were bright, some balls were heavy, some were light. Tall people carried them, small people carried them, everybody carried them, and everybody thought the same thought. Good Wemmicks have a lot. Not so good Wemmicks have little. Now, when a Wemmick walked down the center of Wemmicksville with a stack of balls and boxes higher than his head, the people stopped. "Now, there's a good Wemmick," they would say. But when a Wemmick passed by with only 1 ball or 1 box, the others would shake their heads and think, "Oh, poor, 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 poor Wemmick." Of course, Punchinello didn't want to be called poor. He didn't want to be a poor Wemmick, so he decided to get as many boxes and balls as he could. He searched through the closet and found 1 little ball. He dug into his pocket and found enough money for 1 little box. "I know what I'll do," he declared. "I'll sell my books to get more money to buy more boxes and balls." So that's exactly what he did. He bought a blue and a green box with clouds painted on the sides, but still, he wanted more. "I'll work nights to get extra money," he told himself. So he did, and bought a ball. And since he was working nights, he didn't need his bed, so he decided, "I'll sell my bed." And with that, he sold his bed and bought 2 more balls. Soon Punchinello had an armful, but other Wemmicks had more than that. Some of them had so many boxes and so many balls that they actually had trouble walking. "It's hard keeping up with all my balls and boxes," they would say, acting like they were complaining, but really, they were bragging. Punchinello wanted to be like all these Wemmicks, so he sold more stuff and he worked more hours. His eyes were tired from not getting any sleep, and his arms were tired from carrying toys, and he couldn't remember when he last sat down to rest. Worst of all, his friends couldn't remember when Punchinello came to play last. "We haven't seen you for such a long time," his friend Lucia said to him one day. "Why don't you come play with us again?" asked his buddy Splint. Not everyone cared about boxes and balls. Punchinello's friends didn't. But Punchinello cared more about having boxes and balls than he cared about having friends. "I've got work to do," he would tell them, and his friends would sigh. Punchinello didn't care. He only cared what the other box and ball people thought, and no matter what he did, he couldn't buy enough things to get their attention. Finally, he had an idea. I'll sell my house, he decided. That's crazy, said Lucia. Where are you gonna live? Asked Splint. Punchinello didn't know, but he didn't care. All he could think about was more boxes and more balls, and then he would have all those things with all that money. So he sold his house, and he bought boxes and boxes and boxes and balls and balls and more balls. And he carried so many toys that he couldn't see where he was going. His stack went way above his head, but he didn't mind. So what if his arms ached? So what if he was walking into walls? So what if he had no friends? He had boxes and he had balls. And when he passed Wemmicks, they would say, wow, he must be a good Wemmick. Punchinello heard them. He couldn't see them, but he heard them. And he felt good. I am a good Wemmick, he thought. But then somebody changed the rules. It was the mayor's wife. She was very, very proud of the boxes and the balls, and she liked her boxes and balls, and not only did she have a lot of them, but she also had special kinds of them. She bought them at the fanciest stores with funny little names and left names on the boxes so everyone would see the names. She wanted to be the best Wemmick. One day she had an idea. Not only will I have the most, but I will have the highest. So she climbed on top of one of her boxes and shouted at the very top, "Look at me, everybody!" Immediately all the box and ball people tried to outdo her. One climbed on a fountain, another climbed on a balcony, and then another onto a roof. It was the mayor who spotted the mountain, however. Behind the village of Wemmicks was Wemmick's Peak. "I'm going to the top of that mountain," he shouted, hoping to be there first. The race was on to see which Wemmick would have the most and climb the highest. Wemmicks loaded with boxes and balls began running up the mountain. It was crazy, a crazy, 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 crazy race. Since the wooden people couldn't see where they were going, they bumped into one another. And since they were exhausted, they fell down. And since the trail was narrow, some fell down on the side of it. But they kept on going because they wanted to get to the top. Bringing up the rear was Punchinello. He was having a hard climb, harder than the rest. After all, he'd only been a good Wemmick for a short, short time. He wasn't used to carrying so many boxes and so many balls, but he was determined. He kept putting one little wooden foot in front of the other. But since he couldn't see, he really didn't know what side of the trail he was on. All he knew was that, all of a sudden, he was alone. I must be ahead of everybody else, he thought to himself. And so he kept climbing and kept climbing. Up, 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 up he went, up he went. I've got to be near the top. I am such a good Wemmick. I'm such a good Wemmick. I'll be the highest. I'll be up there with the most. About that time, Punchinello's foot caught the edge of something, and he tried to keep his balance. His toys swayed to the right, and then they swayed to the left, and then he leaned back, up and forward, but he couldn't stop. He was gonna fall. He was gonna fall. He didn't know, however, that he had walked up the trail right to Eli's house. He tripped right on the step, on that front porch step, and tumbled right through the front of Eli's workshop. When Punchinello realized where he was embarrassed. For a long time, he stayed face down on the floor, surrounded by all of his boxes and all of his balls. One of the balls rolled across the floor and stopped right at Eli's workbench. That's when the woodcarver turned around. "Punchinello!" Eli's voice was calm and deep and kind. And when the Wemmick stood still and didn't even move, he could feel his wooden face turning red. "Ooh, looks like you've been carrying a big load." The weary Wemmick climbed to his knees, but kept his head low. "These are my boxes and my balls," he said quietly. "Ooh, Do you play with your boxes and the balls? Asked Eli.
Hi.
Punchinello shook his head.
Hi.
Do you like those boxes and those balls? I like the way they make me feel. And how do they make you feel? Important, Punchinello answered in his small voice. Eli just observed. Well, so, you've been thinking like all the other Wemmicks. You've been thinking that the more you have, the better you are, and the happier that you'll be. I suppose so. Come here, Punchinello.
Go.
I want to show you something. Punchinello lifted his wooden head, and he looked right at Eli for the first time. And he was relieved to see that the Wemmick maker wasn't angry. Punchinello followed Eli over to the window. Look at them, Eli said. Go ahead. Look. Punchinello looked out the window at the swarm of Wemmicks still climbing that mountain. They were tumbling, stumbling, fighting each other, even elbowing each other to get ahead. Tell me, Punchinello, do they look happy? Eli asked. Punchinello shook his head. Do they look important? Not at all, Punchinello said, noticing the mayor and his wife. The mayor was on the ground, and she was stepping on his back. She had a box on her head, and he had a ball in his mouth. Do you think I created Wemmicks to act that way? Asked Eli. No. Punchinello felt a hand on his shoulder. Do you know how much your boxes and balls cost you? My books and my bed and my money and my house, my little friend. They cost you more than that. Punchinello was trying to remember what else he had sold when Eli continued. They cost you happiness. You haven't been happy, have you? Punchinello paused. No. They cost you friends. And most of all, they cost you trust. You didn't trust me to make you happy. You trusted boxes and balls. Punchinello looked at the pile of toys. All of a sudden, they didn't seem so valuable. I kind of messed up. That's okay. You are still so special. Punchinello ducked his head and smiled. You're special, not because of what you have. You're special because of who you are. You're mine. I love you. Don't forget that, little friend. I won't. Punchinello smiled. Then he paused and he asked, Eli? Yes? What should I do with all these boxes and balls? Perhaps you should give them to someone who needs them. Punchinello turned to leave, but stopped again. Eli? Yes? I don't have a place to sleep anymore. Eli smiled and offered, would you like to sleep here tonight? I sure would. I'm so tired. And so that night, Punchinello slept on a bed of wood shavings, and he slept well. It felt good to be in the house of his maker. The end. And that is, You Are Mine.
So the story is wonderful. It's simple but true. But Punchinello thought it would make him important and feel good if he had all these boxes and balls. But then his arms began to get really tired. Once again, Punchinello is at the knee of his Creator. And he hears the words that are most special from Eli, the master builder. He says, Punchinello, you are special. Not because of the things you have, but because you are mine. What a great lesson to know that God created us and we are His and we are special, not so much because of the things we have. I remember when I was a little boy, we would always compare the size of our muscles, you know, and we played this game of who has more, of who has the bigger muscles, and that developed into our teenage years, who had the best car, and then into our adult years, who had maybe the biggest house, and we got older, maybe the bigger bank accounts, and we played this game of who has more. This children's story, titled You Are Mine, speaks to adults as much as it does to children. It's a parable that teaches how following the crowd by getting more and more stuff to keep up with the Joneses doesn't really matter in the end. You know, naked we came into the world, naked we'll go out. And so allow God to say, you are mine and you are special because of just who you are. I want to finish the song with that Crayon Box song. When I was just a little child, no higher than your knee, my mother bought a box of crayons just for me. I picked them up and opened them up, and I looked down inside, and the colors there reminded me of Jesus when He died. Red is the color of the blood that He shed, brown for the crown that they laid on His head, blue is for royalty, within Him it dwells, yellow is for the Christian who's afraid to tell, afraid to tell of a Savior who died on Calvary, who died for lonely sinners just like you and me. One day soon He's coming back to be our King, and the colors of that grand box you will surely see. Here's what we'll see. We'll see red is the color of the blood that He shed, brown is for the crown that they laid on His head, blue is for royalty, within Him it dwells, yellow is for the Christian who's afraid to tell. Well, I colored and I colored till my crayons were all gone. Although I am much older now, the memories linger on. So when I see a little child, crayon box in hand, I tell them what they mean to me and hope they understand. I tell them that red is the color of the blood that Jesus shed, brown is for the crowns that they laid on His head, blue is for royalty, within Him it dwells, yellow is for the Christian who's afraid to tell. I hope you enjoyed that song, and I want to thank Pam Hayes for reading that story. And we're going to have a couple of these daily devotions with the children's books This is the second in this series. The first one is You Are Special about Punchinello. So I hope you enjoy them. May the Lord bless and keep you this day. Thank you very much.